Boss wife. I don't even know why I'm writing this. Maybe because if I don't get this out, it'll choke me silent forever. You ever have a secret that feels like a live wire in your chest, buzzing louder every day? Carol is her name. I can't even type her name without my stomach flipping. I'm Jenny, 20 years old, from a town so small the main street is just a dirt road with a diner and a church. I came to the city for college, but I didn't come here to fall for a married woman. Especially not the boss's wife. It started in October, my second month at Wilson College. I needed a job, so I took a shift at Mel's Diner, a greasy spoon near campus. The first day, Carol walked in like she owned the place, which she did. Technically, her husband, Mel, was the big, booming man who fried the burgers and yelled orders. But Carol was all sharp edges and soft smiles, petite, porcelain skin, her red hair cut in a sleek bob that swung when she walked, her hips swaying in a black apron that tied tight around her waist. I found her to be extremely pretty. "You must be Jenny, the new girl," she said, holding out a hand with scarlet nails. "Don't let Mel scare you. He's all bark, no bite." Her voice was warm, like honey poured over whiskey, and when she smiled, I felt it in my toes. The first encounter was innocent enough, at least, that's what I told myself. She showed me how to slice tomatoes without crying, her hand over mine on the knife, her breath warm on my neck. "Gentle but firm," she said, guiding the blade through the red flesh. "Like handling something delicate, but not too delicate to break." I nodded, but I could barely focus on the tomato. All I could think about was the way her silk blouse smelled like jasmine, the way her thumb pressed into my knuckle to steady my grip. When Mel slammed a spatula on the grill, I jumped and she laughed, low and rich, her hand lingering on my arm. "Nervous, honey?" she asked. I was, but not of Mel. The second time was a week later, during the closing shift. I was wiping down the Formica counters when Carol came in from the back, her apron gone, wearing a tight sweater that showed the outline of her bra. "Mel's gone to pick up supplies," she said, leaning against the counter, her legs crossed. "Mind helping me with the inventory?" Her eyes flicked to the storeroom door, and my heart started pounding. In the narrow space, stacked with cans and sacks of flour, she handed me a clipboard, but her fingers brushed mine, lingering. "You're a good girl," she said, her voice lower than usual. "Too good for a place like this." I didn't know what to say. I just stared at the way the light from the single bulb made her hair glow like fire, the way her sweater rode up when she reached for a can, showing a sliver of her stomach. Before I could move, the phone rang in the front diner, making us both jump. Carol sighed, stepping back. "Better answer that," she said, but her smile was a promise. "We'll finish this later." I should have stayed away. I should have quit. But the next day, I found a note in my apron pocket, scrawled in neat cursive, "Meet me in the back booth after lunch. I need to show you something." I went, of course. The booth was shadowed, and Carol slid in next to me, so close our thighs touched. "I can't stop thinking about you," she said, not looking at me, her fingers twisting a napkin. "The way you blush when I touch you, it's like you're begging me to do it again." My breath hitched. "Carol, we shouldn't," I started, but she turned, her face inches from mine, and I could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. "Shush," she said, her hand resting on my knee, sliding up, until it reached the hem of my skirt. I froze, torn between wanting to run and wanting to lean in. Just as her fingers brushed the inside of my thigh, the bell above the door jingled and Mel's voice boomed through the diner. Carol jumped back, smoothing her sweater, but her smirk was wicked. Saved by the bell, she murmured, and I knew this wasn't over. The third encounter was the night it all shifted. It was raining, a cold, sleety rain that rattled the diner windows. I was the only one left besides Carol, who'd asked me to stay and organize the spice rack. In the kitchen, she stood behind me, reaching over to grab a jar of paprika, her chest pressing against my back. "You smell like vanilla," she said, her lips almost touching my ear. It's distracting. I turned, and we were so close, our noses almost brushing. I could feel her breath on my lips, see the pulse fluttering in her neck. I whispered, not sure if it was a plea or a warning. Her hand slid to the small of my back, pulling me closer, and I felt the softness of her against me, the heat. I should have pushed her away. Instead, I leaned in, my eyes closing. The back door slammed open, and Mel's voice echoed, loud and drunk, from the alley. Carol jumped back, grabbing a dish towel, her cheeks flushed. "Go out the front," she said, not looking at me. "I'll handle him." I fled, heart pounding, the taste of jasmine still on my lips, the memory of her touch burning on my skin. That night, I lay in my dorm bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was losing my mind. I'd never felt this way about a woman before. I'd never felt this way about anyone. The fourth time was the night I found another note, folded into the pages of my chemistry textbook, upstairs after closing. "Mel's at the poker game." My hands shook as I locked the diner door, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Carol met me at the bottom of the stairs, her robe slipping off one shoulder, revealing the strap of a lace slip I'd never seen before. Black, delicate, the kind of thing that didn't belong in a diner. "I've been thinking about you all day," she said, taking my hand, leading me up the creaky steps. "About how you'd taste, how you'd sound." Her voice trailed off as we stepped into the apartment, the air thick with cigarette smoke and something sweeter, like ripe strawberries. She turned to me, cupping my face in her hands, her thumbs brushing my cheeks. "Tell me to stop," she whispered, but her eyes were dark, hungry. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Instead, I kissed her, clumsy and desperate, my hands tangling in her hair, her robe slipping to the floor. She moaned into my mouth, her tongue sliding against mine, hot and insistent, and I felt her hands on my back, undoing the buttons of my blouse, sliding it off, her fingers grazing the straps of my bra. "So beautiful," she murmured, pulling back to look at me, her gaze making me feel like I was burning from the inside out. We fell onto the couch, her slip riding up, my skirt bunched around my hips, and I forgot everything: college, the diner, the fact that she was married, the fact that I'd never done this with anyone, let alone a woman. Her mouth was everywhere, hot and insistent, kissing my neck, my collarbone, lower, until she reached the edge of my bra. I arched into her, a gasp escaping my lips as her hand slid into my panties, her fingers teasing me, making me wet and wanting. "Oh my God," I breathed, and she looked up, a smirk on her lips, before kissing me again, deeper, her hand moving faster, harder, until I was trembling, clinging to her, the world narrowing to just her touch, her smell, the sound of her name on my lips. We almost didn't hear the key in the lock. Mel's voice echoed from the stairs, loud and slurred. "Honey? You up here?" Carol froze, her hand still inside me, her eyes wide. "Shit," she whispered, pulling away, scrambling to grab her robe. I grabbed my blouse, fumbling with the buttons, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. "In the bathroom," she hissed, pushing me toward the door. I leapt into the bathroom, closing the door softly, listening as Mel stumbled into the apartment, as Carol laughed nervously, as she said, "I thought you were at the poker game, honey." Her voice was steady, but I could hear the tremble underneath, the way she was leaning into the lie. I stayed in the bathroom for what felt like hours, until Mel's snores filled the apartment. When I emerged, Carol was sitting on the edge of the bed, smoking a cigarette, her back to me. "You should go," she said, not turning around. But her voice was different, cold, distant. I wanted to touch her, to make her look at me, but I knew I couldn't. I left through the back stairwell, the cold night air hitting my face, her lipstick still smudged on my collar, her secret heavy in my chest. The fifth encounter was a week later, and it was all tension, lingering glances across the diner, her hand brushing my hip as she passed, the heat of her leg against mine when we squeezed past each other in the kitchen. Mel was in a foul mood, slamming plates and yelling at customers, and Carol was all sharp smiles and quick movements, like she was trying to outrun something. Then, one slow afternoon, when the diner was empty except for a couple of truckers dozing at the counter, Carol nodded toward the storeroom. "Need help restocking," she said, her voice neutral, but her eyes burning. In the storeroom, she pushed me against a shelf of canned peaches, her mouth on mine, urgent, desperate, like she'd been starving for it. "Mel's been drinking again," she murmured against my neck, her hand sliding under my uniform, up my thigh. "He doesn't. He hasn't touched me in months." I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I just kissed her back, my hands under her blouse, feeling the smooth skin of her back, the clasp of her bra. She moaned into my mouth, her hips grinding against mine, and I could feel the heat of her, the need, matching my own. Her blouse fell to the floor, and I stared at her, the soft curves of her breasts, the red lace bra that matched her nails. "Touch me," she whispered, guiding my hand to her breast, and I did, gently at first, then harder, as she gasped, her head falling back against the shelf. Her hand was in my hair, pulling me closer, her other hand between us, undoing the button of my skirt, sliding inside my panties, her fingers finding me wet, ready. I bit my lip to keep from moaning, the danger of being caught making it hotter, more urgent. Just as she pushed a finger inside me, the diner bell jingled, and we heard Mel's voice from the front. "Honey, where the hell are you?" Carol froze, her forehead resting against mine, her breath ragged. "Act natural," she whispered, pulling away, smoothing her hair, picking up her blouse. I followed her out, my legs shaky, my skirt button wrong, but Mel was too busy yelling at a trucker to notice. Carol shot me a glance over her shoulder, a flicker of a smile, and I knew this wasn't over. It would never be over. The sixth encounter was the night it all broke loose. Carol showed up at my dorm, rain pouring down, her hair plastered to her face, her coat dripping on the linoleum floor. "Mel hit me," she said, voice flat, but her eye was swollen, a bruise blooming under her makeup. I pulled her inside, grabbing a towel, my heart breaking. "Why didn't you leave him?" I asked, but I knew the answer. Where would she go? What would people say? In 1955, a woman didn't just leave her husband, especially not for another woman. She didn't answer. Instead, she kissed me, rough and tearful, her hands gripping my waist like I was the only thing keeping her afloat. I kissed her back, gentle now, wiping her tears, guiding her to my tiny bed. We undressed each other slowly, no urgency now, just soft touches, whispered reassurances. "You're so good to me," she murmured, her hand on my cheek, and I wanted to tell her she deserved better, that she deserved everything, but I didn't. I just showed her with my mouth, my hands, the way I held her close, like I could shield her from the world. That night, we didn't sleep. We talked in whispers, her head on my chest, my fingers in her hair, and she told me things she'd never told anyone about growing up poor, about marrying Mel for security, about the hollow years since. "I never knew I could feel like this," she said, tracing patterns on my stomach. "Like I'm finally alive." Neither did I. But I didn't say it. I just held her tighter, knowing that every moment together was a ticking clock, that someone would find out, that it would end in ruin. The seventh encounter was the riskiest yet. Carol had learned Mel's schedule. Every Thursday night, he went to the bowling alley with his buddies, drunk by 9, home by midnight. We started using those hours, turning my dorm room into our sanctuary. She'd arrive with a flask of bourbon, wearing a scarf over her hair, laughing nervously as she shut the door. "God, this is reckless," she'd say, but her hands were already on my hips, pulling me close. One Thursday, she came wearing a silk nightgown under her coat, the color of ripe cherries. "For you," she said, letting the coat fall, and I stared, breathless, at the way the fabric clung to her curves, the way the neckline dipped low enough to show the top of her breasts. She climbed onto the bed, pulling me down with her, and this time, there was no hurry, no fear of being caught, just the slow, burning heat of exploration. Her hands moved over me like she was memorizing every inch, her mouth following, soft and insistent, until I was squirming beneath her, gasping her name into the pillow. "I want to make you feel good," she whispered, and she did, in ways I'd never imagined, her touch both gentle and demanding, like she wanted to erase every doubt, every fear, with her body. I let her, arching into her, losing myself in the waves of sensation, the knowledge that this was wrong only making it more intense, more vital. When it was over, we lay tangled in my scratchy dorm sheets, her leg thrown over mine, her breath warm on my shoulder. "I wish we could stay like this forever," she said, and for the first time, I didn't answer with silence. I squeezed her hand and said, "Me too." Now, the diner feels like a powder keg. Mel's suspicion grows. He started checking Carol's purse, asking me questions about her late nights. But Carol just smiles, smooth and cool, and I play the part of the clueless college girl, even as my heart pounds every time he looks at me. We steal glances, touch each other when no one's looking, a brush of the hand while passing the ketchup, a knee pressed against mine under the counter, and each touch is a spark, a reminder of what we've built, what we're risking. I don't know how much longer we can keep this up. Sooner or later, Mel will find out, or someone will talk, and it'll all come crashing down. But for now, I'll take the stolen moments. The way Carol's eyes light up when she sees me, the way her touch makes me feel like I'm not just a small-town girl anymore. This is my confession. I fell for a woman with red hair and a ring on her finger, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Even though I know it'll probably destroy us both. Maybe some desires are worth the destruction. Maybe some loves are so bright, so forbidden, that they're worth the fall. All I know is that every time I see her across the diner, flipping burgers or laughing with a customer, I feel it, the pull, the danger, the longing. And I wonder if she feels it too, that live wire between us, humming louder every day. And I hope she does. I hope she burns with it, too.